Today's reading is a poem by C.S. Lewis, and it's called On Being Human. Angelic minds, they say, by simple intelligence, behold the forms of nature. They discern unerringly the archetypes, all the verities, which mortals lack or indirectly learn. Transparent in primordial truth, unvarying, pure earthness and right stonehood from their clear high eminence are seen. Unveiled, the seminal huge principles appear. The treeness of the tree they know, the meaning of arboreal life, how from earth's salty lap the solar beam uplifts it. All the holiness enacted by leaves fall and rising sap. But never an angel knows the knife-edged severance of sun from shadow where the trees begin. The blessed cool at every pore caressing us. An angel has no skin. They see the form of air, but mortals breathe in it, drink the whole summer down into the breast. The lavish pinks, the field new mown, the ravishing sea smells, the wood fire smoke that whispers, rest. The tremor on the rippled pool of memory that from each smell in widening circles goes. The pleasure and the pang, can angels measure it? An angel has no nose. The nourishing of life and how it flourishes, on death and why, they utterly know. But not the hill-born earthy spring, the dark cold bilberries, the ripe peach from the southern wall still hot, full-bellied tankards foamy topped, the delicate half-lyric lamb, a new loaf's billowy curves, nor porridge, nor the tingling taste of oranges. An angel has no nerves. Far richer they, I know, the senses' witchery guards us like air from heavens too big to see. Imminent death to man, that barbed sublimity and the dazzling edge of beauty unsheathed would be. Yet here, within this tiny charmed interior, this parlor of the brain, their maker shares with living men some secrets in a privacy forever ours, not theirs. Good morning. That was On Being Human by C.S. Lewis. And I came across this poem when doing research for the newsletter. And I think this may be the only poem that I've actually shared twice in the 2 years that I've been putting out the weekly newsletter. And it's because it resonated with me just so strongly. Every time, I do like poetry. It's musical. It feels like a prayer to me. But I don't always get my breath taken away by a poem. And this one takes my breath away. Every time I hear of it, I immediately think of French fries. Why French fries, you may ask? Well, when I first found ISD and used to drive back and forth a couple of times a week, every time I got close to Richfield Springs, I would start smelling the French fries from the McDonald's there. Now, that might not sound strange to you, but I drive in the vicinity of the McDonald's and I'd actually buy it. And I still drive the same route and I don't smell the French fries anymore. Now, my husband loved McDonald's French fries. And somehow I always had the impression that he was wafting the scent in my direction. I remember even saying it out loud a couple of times, no, Ken, I'm not stopping to pick up French fries. But that scent always made me think about the fact that McDonald's French fries might just be one of those things we need to appreciate while we're here in these physical bodies. One of the things that he missed after crossing over, one of the perks of being human, at least if they're fresh, right? Fresh and hot. Now, not too long ago, I was thinking about the fact that it had been a while since I had the opportunity to do something nice for a stranger. I just love it when I'm in a situation where I can randomly do something to make someone's life easier, make them smile. And about a week later, I was shopping at a local discount grocer, and this lady came up behind me in line. Now, her husband was in the line across from us, and I heard him call out to her, "You only have enough for that." And then their kids came up with some extra items and put them on the conveyor belt. And I knew that the total wasn't very much. It was under $10. So before I knew it, I heard myself saying, "I'll pay for theirs too." Now the family thanked me and the cashier thanked me, and I just kind of brushed it away. And as I was walking out to the car, I was even trying not to think about it because just acknowledging the act to myself felt like bragging. And then I realized this simple, small act brought me joy. I had asked to be allowed to be in a situation to do something nice for a stranger, and the universe heard me and gave me the opportunity. And yet, my natural instinct was to bury the joy that act had brought me, to not allow myself to step into truly experiencing the beauty of doing something nice. And it got me thinking about how many times we do that. We step into a beautiful experience on this human journey, and we bury the resulting feelings of joy as if we're not worthy of experiencing them. Now, we all realize that we do this during negative experiences, right? This burying. How much shadow work have we done to lift up our floorboards and review those feelings of sadness, anger, disappointment, grief that we buried years ago? But are we also aware that we do this with positive experiences? Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to truly step into happiness, joy, peace. We take a little taste and then we turn away. No, I'm not worthy of experiencing this to its fullest. If I do, then I risk stepping into hubris or boasting or just being full of myself. Now, just to be clear, I'm not talking about boasting or about outside acknowledgement. This is not about a need to walk around telling people how wonderful you are. And just for the record, using a story in a homily doesn't count. But what I'm talking about isn't even necessarily talking about service to others. Although we all know that being of service is part of what we're here for, right? And we know that it fuels us and it gives us wings. But that's for another homily. For today, I'm not talking about anything outside of ourselves. What I'm talking about is an internal view, our own personal way of acknowledging or not acknowledging our joyful experiences. Now, we know that we're spiritual beings experiencing a physical existence, right? Through the last couple of years with our COVID quarantine, say that 3 times fast, we have spent a lot of time working on our spiritual connection. We've done intense spiritual work. We've shaken out those pieces of ourselves that need to be examined and have looked at them more closely. We've prayed, we've meditated, we've connected more strongly to the divine within us, our spiritual being, our higher selves. But have we truly stepped into finding joy in this physical existence? And maybe now it's time to think about doing that. So let's take a look at finding the joy of this human experience with all of its ups and downs. How can we allow ourselves to embrace being human and fully step into the joy of this magical journey we decided to embark on? So let's start with looking at joy. What is the difference between happiness and joy? We had a great happy song that started us out. What's the difference between happiness and joy? And the two can often be used interchangeably, but for today, let's think about them a little differently. Happiness is a little more of a reactionary emotion. That song we listened to, that made me happy, right? Something happens that makes you happy. Winning the lottery makes you happy. But then the money's gone. So is the happiness. Getting your house cleaned makes you happy. But when the dust and the clutter comes back, you're no longer happy. So let's think of happiness as something outside of you, something that gives you a temporary feeling of pleasure. Now, joy is more about a state of being. It's a way to approach life. Joy is not caused by something external, but instead is about allowing yourself to open to something inside. Maybe we can think of joy like an internal light switch. Happiness can help you find that switch, but flipping it on, that takes more. Joy can be a way of life. Even in those times when something is happening that doesn't make us happy, we still know there's joy waiting in the wings. I have a quote from author Walter Wangerin Jr. from his book, Meditations on the suffering, death, and the resurrection of Jesus as recorded in Mark. And it speaks to the difference. He says, the difference between shallow happiness and a deep sustaining joy is sorrow. Happiness lives where sorrow is not. When sorrow arrives, happiness dies. It can't stand pain. Joy, on the other hand, rises from sorrow and therefore can withstand all grief. Interesting quote, right? Joy rises from sorrow like a phoenix. But how do we reach that point? A point where we allow ourselves to experience this human existence in such a way that even those times of difficulty don't drown our joy. They only give rise to a stronger version of ourselves that's better able to embrace joy. Well, part of this comes from embracing our divinity, our spiritual side. We already mentioned that we're spiritual beings living a human existence. But if we don't embrace that human side too, that side that's part of who we are right now, we can't completely step into joy. And being human can be difficult, right? I found myself saying to clients or students regularly, remember, you're only human. Or we signed up for a difficult gig. I guess that I really need to work on changing my thinking too. So why is it that we believe that being human is so hard? Well, part of it, I think, stems from our beliefs. Or maybe it's more about the folklore that we grew up with, the things that we were told. Christians believe in the story of Adam and Eve, which basically says that we fell when we decided to enter this world. That by Eve deciding to eat from the tree of wisdom, we were all cursed. So many of us were brought up being instilled with the belief that there's something intrinsically wrong with us just by being human. We're sinners and we must atone for our sins. And the way to do that is through suffering. Now, you guys all know, because I've mentioned it many times in my homilies, I was brought up Catholic. And we always held up the saints as symbols of goodness and examples of the lives we should be trying to lead. And yet, what made someone a saint? How did the church decide who should be a saint? When you use the terminology, someone is a saint, why are you calling them that? Well, that's pretty simple, really. To be a saint, you have to suffer and still hold on to your faith. And it's that suffering that makes you a good person. So I feel like I was brought up believing that in order to be a good human being, you had to suffer. Being good was not about allowing joy, it was about allowing suffering. A few years ago, I bought myself a tarot deck. It was called a Cathar deck. And the cards were just so beautiful and it came in this really pretty embossed box. But before I used it, I decided to do some research on the Cathars, which might not have been such a great idea. The Cathars were a medieval Christian Gnostic sect in northern Italy and southern France between the 12th and 14th century. Now, some of their beliefs were pretty awesome. For example, they recognized the feminine aspect of God and they encouraged equality of the sexes, which seemed to have been pretty unheard of in that time, right? So that was pretty terrific. But they also believed in hell, and not as this remote place somewhere in the underworld. For them, hell was the physical world, and our souls were doomed to this hell until they renounced the body and the temptations of the physical world. So again, that premise, by just being here in these bodies, we were doing something wrong and deserved to be punished. That our very existence in this physical world is a punishment. Well, once I had read up on the Cathars, I really just became sad. Just the thought that these people had seen their human existence as hell. And in all honesty, life really was much more difficult in that time and place. But the inability to find joy, the belief that life was about being punished, that saddened me. And when I finally tried to use the tarot cards, I just couldn't do it. Every time I looked at the deck, I was overcome with sadness, and I ended up having to give it away. So traditional beliefs, the beliefs that we need to atone for some ethereal sin, some sin that we don't even remember, that to be good people, we need to suffer. But we're not in those times anymore. Those biblical times, those medieval times, times when teachers were trying to explain why life was so difficult. Sure, life is still difficult sometimes. But heck, we have McDonald's French fries, running water, electricity, toilets. We've got some pretty good stuff. So maybe if we can change the way we view who we are and why we're here, then we can begin to understand that even those times that are difficult don't need to become what defines us and holds us back from joy. We're not being punished. We're having an experience. Maybe one that doesn't feel so great at the time it's happening, but one that is part of the journey we decided to take. So let's look at something a little more recent. There's a quote from the collective known as Abraham, as channeled through Esther Hicks, that might help us change our perspective. Abraham said, "If we were talking to you on your first day here, we would say, 'Welcome to planet Earth. There's nothing that you cannot be or do or have, and your work here, your lifetime career, is to seek joy.'" Pretty good, huh? Okay, so if we're able to change our perspective on why we're here, then how do we start to step into this joy? How do we allow ourselves to embrace this human journey as something that's not a punishment, but instead is something that's meant to feed us, to nurture us, to help us cultivate that joy? Well, each of us is going to have our own way of doing this, but here are some suggestions. Now, this one I say often, but to me, the first step is gratitude. That's why we had to change our perspective on why we're here. Because who the heck can be grateful about being a sinner or about being punished, right? But we can be grateful about an experience that's teaching us. So let's start with gratitude. Before you go to sleep at night, before you get out of bed in the morning, allow yourself to step into a place of gratitude. In the beginning, it can be something as simple as being grateful for the pillow under your head or for the sun shining outside your window in the morning. The more that you do this, the more that you make this practice part of your regular self-care routine, the easier that it becomes. And you'll find that eventually you don't even have to think of something in particular. That space of gratitude will just be something that you step into. The next thing that we can do is slow down a little. Let yourself fully experience the journey. Sometimes we move so fast that we don't fully appreciate the moment we're in or the beautiful little things that are happening around us. So slow down. Take the time to use all of your senses. The more senses that you use, the more pleasurable your experience is. Right now, the wonder of autumn. When you go outside, allow yourself to feel the cool air that's hitting your skin. Angels may not have skin, but we do. And it's a tool to use to fully experience things. The smell of autumn, it's so unique. Drink it in with that nose that an angel doesn't have. See the beautiful nakedness of the branches on the trees. Yesterday, I was outside. I noticed a squirrel way up at the top of this large tree. Now, any other time of year, I might have just seen him running on the ground, but I wouldn't have been able to see him all the way up at the top. How wonderful of a human experience just seeing a squirrel can be. And allow yourself to fully embrace the little things that feel good. Again, the other day, I noticed it, maybe for the first time, or maybe it's the first time I allowed myself to acknowledge it. I went to blow out a candle, and the smell when I blew out that candle, that smell, it happens so fast. You have to catch it at the moment, but it's an amazing smell. The fresh feeling when you get out of the shower, when you've just gotten done swimming. Your first stretch in the morning before you get out of bed. Experience those. And as you're allowing yourself to experience things fully, try to take one day, one moment at a time. It's not always easy. Concentrate on what is going on right now, not what's going to happen or what has already happened. What's happening right now? What are you experiencing right now? And how do you feel as a result of that? Another idea, give yourself some downtime. We don't have to be on point all the time. There's no need to be accomplishing something every minute of every day. Relax, eat a bowl of ice cream or some chocolate. Take a day to stay in your pajamas for the whole day. Binge on Netflix or read a trashy romance novel. Just enjoy doing nothing occasionally. And while you're at it, don't forget to play sometimes. Allow yourself to have fun and frolic with your inner child. Maybe it's blowing bubbles or drawing a picture or jumping in a pile of leaves. Whatever seems silly and just plain fun. Another idea, and this may be an important one, and I have to thank my friend Reverend Story for this one. How many of you have a set of good china or good silver or a good dress that you're saving for a special occasion? Well, what exactly are you saving these things for? Indulge yourself. Eat a slice of pizza on your good plates. Drink from your beautiful china teacup like Story lets us do every time we're at her house. Put on your good dress and go to the grocery store. Stop saving your best things for another time. Enjoy them now. Okay, these ideas all sound good. And maybe you'll think about putting a few of them into practice. I hope so. But we all know, let's be realistic. We all know this human journey is not always sunshine and roses. I try and bring you sunshine and roses, but it's not always sunshine and roses. No one is trying to tell you that you will not experience things that we don't think of as joyful. Not. You're not going to experience non-joyful things. Even our earlier quote from Walter Wangerin Jr. talks about joy being able to survive sorrow. So take it from the widow. I know there's loss on this journey. I know that there are financial struggles. I know that there are conflicts, times we don't see eye to eye with those we love, those who are closest to us. I know there's pain, physical pain, psychological struggles. Maybe even these experiences can benefit from a change of perspective. Maybe if we realize that even when we're in the midst of an experience that doesn't feel good, we might be able to look at it from a different angle. So I'm going to give you a really simplistic example to start with. The other day I was taking a shower and trying to get ready for work, and I kept knocking things over. In the shower, at the sink. Finally, after the fourth thing was knocked down, I decided that I had to try and figure out what the message was, right? Being me, I knew I was getting some kind of message. So my first reaction, Renee, you're dropping a lot of things. Oh no, what was I missing? What balls can I no longer juggle that are literally falling? What am I not doing that I'm supposed to be doing? And then I got a figurative tap on the shoulder. Renee, the things that you need are falling at your feet. Wow. When I took a second to tune in and change my perspective, my message went from being one of chiding, hey, dummy, you're dropping a lot of things, to one of abundance. Everything that you need is literally being dropped in front of you. What a difference perspective can make. So that may make a difference for some of our experiences. What about those really stressful situations? Who here feels like they've gone through an awful lot of stress recently? Anybody? Okay. There's paying bills, a sick family member, a new job. We all have these really stressful situations that we go through in this human journey. Now, there's a TED Talk that I watched about a year ago. It's called How to Make Stress Your Friend. And it's given by Kelly McGonigal, who's a health psychologist. And if you get a chance, I think I shared it in the newsletter once, but if you get a chance, I highly suggest that you watch it. She talks about the fact that for years, she taught her clients that stress was bad for them, that by allowing stress into their lives, they were making themselves sick, that they had to figure out a way to get rid of their stress. And then she found a study. Now, this study asked people how much stress they had gone through in the past year. And it also asked them, do you believe that stress is harmful for your health? Now, the study found the people who had experienced a lot of stress in the past year had a 43% higher risk of early death. So all you that raised your hand, uh-oh. But that was only true for those people who believed that stress was harmful for their health. Those who did not believe that stress was bad for them had absolutely no increased risk of early death. None. Their bodies literally dealt with stress differently than the people who believed that stress would kill them. So what she was saying was that when you change your mind about stress, you change your body's reaction to it. So the ability to view stressful situations as your body being energized instead of as your body being traumatized. Seeing your physical reactions to stress as your body preparing you for a challenge. Seeing stress as helpful, as a method of preparing you for action instead of as something that's going to kill you. That changed the result. So basically, if you've always been told that something's bad for you and you believe it, it then becomes bad for you. So maybe by viewing our life experiences as negative, we're going to experience them as negative. Sounds like Abraham Hicks again, doesn't it? So just a second ago, I called myself a widow. So how did I manage to find joy in the loss of my husband? Now remember my original premise that happiness and joy are two different things. I was not happy. I'm not happy at the loss. It was a devastating experience. And unfortunately, loss is part of this human journey. What I was able to do was to change my perspective. I found joy. I found joy in the fact that I'd been allowed to experience great love. I found joy in the fact that that love was so intense that he is able to reach it out to me from the other side. I continue to find joy every time I receive a message or a sign from him. That's how I was able to turn loss into joy. Now let's be serious here. We're not going to be able to change our perspective overnight. I know that for me, there are still times when I don't fully appreciate being human, where I wake up grumpy, and rather than feeling gratitude, my first reaction is, oh no, not again. I'm not stepping into that place again. But if we can begin to change our perceptions of who we are, why we're here, realize that this journey is one of growth and wisdom, and on the way, there's so much beauty and joy to be experienced. If we can slowly begin to realize that in the words Spirit gave me, berated and beholden we're not, wondrous and wise we are, then maybe we can step into a new dynamic and begin to fill ourselves with the joy of this human experience. Knowing that, as C.S. Lewis said so well in his beautiful poem, we are able to experience things in this physical world. Make this journey well worth it. Thank you.